So here's the deal. I have stood for bravery and courage for a long time. And it showed up in my skydiving, in the way that I took on goals, the way that I learned different disciplines and stuff like that. It showed up in my relationships, the way that I cared for other people, the depth of connection that I made an effort to forge with others. Where it didn't show up was in the effort that I made and in my relationship with myself. So I had a lot of blind spots in that area. So I don't know, the life coach in me is like a blind spot. You know, maybe you guys know what I'm talking about. A blind spot almost inevitably leads to breakdown. You know, if we don't do the work personally or with a pro to illuminate those blind spots, almost inevitably they're going to lead to a breakdown. And so that's what happened with me. So I'm traveling around the world, you know, professional skydiving, like it's one of the coolest things ever. I would never trade it. Coaching days on end and intensely social, intensely physical, coming back home and building my life coaching business, talking to people on the phone, like really just full on. And I burned out. You know, I totally burned out. The thing is that I didn't have, I knew what self-care was, you know, like as a life coach, you hear that term, you know, I'm like, I know what self-care is, but I was not doing it. Wasn't doing it. I also really didn't have this understanding. I didn't know how to have boundaries in my relationships either. So with that, as I said, I burned out. My marriage imploded and ended. With that, I moved, like my external circumstances gratuitously changed, you know, like everything was different in an instant. The insides are all like smithereens, you know. I also had a couple of my friends pass away, die at that time, and so I had increasing fear with skydiving as well. So then what happened was my friend Jessica also died. And the thing about her was that she was like me. She was a pro, very skilled, you know, very much a champion of safety, you know. And my other friends, they died doing some more like intense stunts, you know, whereas Jessica, she passed doing something totally normal. So she was just coaching, just doing a day of coaching, like nothing of interest. And so when that happened, it just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was like, that could absolutely be me. Like I knew I had to take a break. And so now on top of burnout, heartbreak, fear, exhaustion, all of this stuff, I also no longer had the most powerful piece of my identity. You know, Melanie Curtis, professional skydiver, yeah, I know who that person is. That person is very confident. All good. It put me talking about skydiving, I got you, right? Melanie Curtis without skydiving, who was that? No clue, like literally no clue. I started skydiving when I was 18 years old. My entire adult life, I like literally had no idea what life would be like without skydiving. So at this point, I had decided to move to Vermont. I laugh because if any of you know anything about Vermont, no one fucking lives there, okay? Nobody fucking lives there, okay? It's 65 and up, rich people with their fourth home, or it's like fucking married kids, families with kids. Like, it was the perfect wrong place for me, okay? So I go there and I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be the best. Like, I'm gonna heal. It's It's going to be so good, like me in the trees, Vermont serenity, fuck yes. Oh no. What it was it ended up being a full year of excruciating loneliness. I know. But, there's a big but. But, it forced me into this experience with myself. It gave me the experience of having to look at my pain, getting to look at my pain, and go, what got me into this life situation? What was my part in that situation coming to pass, to speak to what Michael just said? You know, I got an awesome therapist. I wish I could recommend Carol to everybody. She's so good. So I got to work with her. I got to have the experience of making healthier choices for myself. I got to feel what that was like. I got to really experience, like, you know, again, the life coach, cheese factor here is, you know, kind of, but like I really got the experience of learning to start loving myself, which is huge. So it brings me to this. Elizabeth Gilbert is one of my mentors for sure. Like I look at her and I think of her and I think she's incredible. And the reason I admire her so much and look up to her so much and consider her such a leader is that she leads through courageous self-expression, such that people can see themselves in her words, and that like really helps us all sort of connect and not feel as alone in our life experience. So this quote, I feel like, speaks so perfectly to my experience. If you're brave enough to leave behind everything familiar and comforting and set out on a truth-seeking journey, and if you are prepared to face and forgive some very difficult realities about yourself, then the truth will not be withheld from you. Whew, fucking goosebumps, seriously, guys. Like, every time I read that, I almost cry because it's so spot on. For me, I was absolutely terrified. I didn't even really know, but I was so terrified of letting go of skydiving, of not having skydiving be this safe thing in my life, you know? I was terrified that people wouldn't like me as much. You know, I was terrified that I would be just generally unhappy. You know, even though I needed a break, I was like, I was terrified that my life coaching business would fail because a lot of my clients still came from my skydiving community online and just through the writing that I did and all that stuff. And what's amazing about how it turns out is that not only did I not fail, I ended up taking 2 years away from the sport, by the way. I took 2 years down, which for someone like me is a very long time. And I needed every single bit of that 2 years. So it was 18 and then 2 off. And when I did decide to come back to skydiving, I was more embraced than I ever have been. Not that I wasn't embraced before, but I was now touching people in a much more deep and rich way because I had deep and rich life experience of my own, and I was willing to share that and lead in the similar way as Elizabeth Gilbert, in the sense that I want to be that leader, not just in positivity and taking on goals and external achievement, but in taking on that internal pursuit as well. And that being like where true bravery and courage lies in my personal view. And so that's something I want to leave you guys with, is like, I would ask you, like, if we talk about the quality of our questions, I would ask you to look at your own life and go, okay, where might I have a blind spot? Where am I feeling something is maybe up or off or not working for me? And just start looking looking at that and ask where you might be able to be brave in this kind of way. Thank you.